All right. Hello, Fortanas, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to Ministry Revealed. It is November 23rd, 2025. I just realized it was 9 o'clock. I knew it was later than usual. We had our family dinner, and I don't like to start this late, especially when I know it might be a little bit longer, but I couldn't sleep on this one. I was very, very excited to get this teaching out tonight, and I want to give thanks to our brother Orlando. He had sent me a message that he was looking to see if there was a mystery in the three items that are in the ark in Hebrews chapter 9. And we'll touch on what they are when we get there in a little bit. And he had an idea, and overall, it was a pretty strong idea. It made sense. And I believe overall it's correct. But then today, in the Ministry Revealed forum, which if you're new to Ministry Revealed, you can go to a link in the description box under a video and you'll find the link to join us in the forum, or you can go to ministryrevealed.com, go to the menu, click forum. It takes 5-10 seconds to sign up and it's free. 1,400 plus brothers and sisters watching and praying, diligently seeking and searching, all sorts of things for the Lord, and news events and all sorts of things, prayer requests. So if you'd like, you can come join us there. But he made a post, I think it was late last night, if I remember correctly, or early today. And it was a post from a channel that we really like here in this ministry, that I really like, and I know a number of brothers and sisters do as well. The brother had moved from England to Alberta, which is where I live in Canada, and he's I think about an hour and a half from me, and he joined forces with this other brother's ministry. And I've shared a little piece of his stuff here and there in the past because they have some really excellent teachings. But they don't have the revelations of the Gospels. They don't have the revelations of the seven churches, the end of days years, and how long it's going to be. So even though they've got some excellent parts and pieces, the way they try to put it together is still a little bit messy. But only when you understand the revelation can you even be aware that it's messy, right? Because it sounds really good up front. But when you have the revelation and you hear some of these little parts and pieces that they teach on, oh man, it ignites, it fires you up. And it happened with Orlando. He got excited about it. And then there was one thing as I was watching it that instantly caught my attention, and all of a sudden floods of links to other scriptures just came flying in, and it's awesome. So I'm going to just open and get things going into things that we've touched on. And by the way, what we're going to touch on, we've talked on this item before, and we know why this item kind of, because of its time frame, is important. But you're going to witness here for yourselves again tonight that the revelation that we have shown in relation to the season and times that we are watching for, I'm going to prove it out again tonight, that you can essentially, at this point, I believe we can say hands down, unequivocal, we have understood the season and the times of all of this beginning. We know that the pre-trib happens a week before the remnant workers are, when the Lord returns as the white horse rider and the remnant workers are chosen. That remnant workers, we mean a portion of the bride that is told in advance that they're going to remain to be girded about when he returns from the wedding, and that they're to be ready, that when he knocks, they will open and he will come and sit with them and dine with them and serve them. That is the remnant group and the time we're talking about. And I believe we have unequivocally understood that season and time. And that's why, for what? How long has it been? I don't know if it's been a year or 8, 10 months, whatever it is now. We've understood this time. It's the revelation of the calendars, and it's the revelation of the 50 days before, having understood the two calendars working simultaneously, the 2 years. And when you see this, on top of all of these things we've come to understand, you're going to understand why it must happen where we've understood it to happen. Because there's an item that we've discussed that we're going to show its relevance even more so, thanks to this brother in the clips that we're going to show, really breaking it down and proving to us the relevance of it. And that relevance is exactly when we explain it would take place. Most people don't get that part. Most people miss that part. So buckle up, get ready, because if this one doesn't excite you, you might want to check your pulse. Because at least if you've been following, if you're newer, okay. But if you've been following for a little bit, you're going to see this. You're going to get it because we've been tracking this, and it's another revelation that ties precisely into it. And it's all connected, not to the bride fully, but to the remnant bride. And I say that purposefully, as you'll see when we get to the video where he teaches on some of this. So with that, it's an exciting time, guys. It's very exciting. The only other hope now is that we have truly understood the year, that we are currently in the 70th year of Jerusalem, as Leviticus 19 explains, because according to that count, and when they came in, when they got Jerusalem as the land, as their capital, there is no other count after this year. We've talked about that quite a bit too. Same with when Israel came in, and there's 14 years left to the final Jubilee from the count when they came in that goes all the way back to Christ. So if we've got that, and there was no hiccups in that count in showing it all the way back to Christ, and now we can tie this in to the remnant workers of light, the remnant bride, buckle up, because it's about to get exciting. So having said that, if the ministry, not only here in the ministry, but over in Uganda, if you're able to help support the ministry, this is an awesome time, because things are getting more exciting by the week. Things are exploding everywhere, and Uganda is where there's a huge move that we're doing over there in helping to support as much as we can, to get Bibles and books, to help them travel, to provide for their needs, to have our brother Steve over there and his ministry just go reach out like crazy. It's a powerful time. I got an email 2 days ago from Amazon for the book that we wrote, right? The book that was written back in 2020. And we haven't had sales like this. It's maybe a couple here, a couple there, one here, one there throughout a week or in a month. It's been slow since it launched, right? It was big when it first launched. A lot of you guys bought the book. Well, there was just almost 400 books purchased. I don't know if it was a month or 2 months ago or what it was, in Japan. Now, I don't make a lot of money, like probably give or take $1 a book, so it's not a lot of money. But the fact that somebody in Japan just placed an order for 400 of the books, brothers and sisters, that is exciting news. And it has nothing to do with the $400, by the way, in case you're wondering. It has to do with somebody seeing it, people understanding it, and something is happening there with it, and I don't even have a clue. That's how the Lord's working. It's been going on in Uganda forever. We've printed tens of thousands of books and salvation books and Bibles given out. And we want to do that more than ever. So for those of you who have supported, thank you. Thank you. For those who continue and for those who will, thank you so much. Now is a great time because we're coming up on just a little over what appears to be 2 months. I think now is a great time to make a push like never before, right through to the end. It is so exciting, guys. And tonight is going to be another one of those. All right? So let's get started. And of course, I'm going to do it because new people need to hear this stuff. And that is, if you're new to Ministry Revealed, you can go to ministryrevealed.com, go to the menu, click on the intro, or you can go to the playlist button here from YouTube and click on intro right here. When you do, it's going to bring up these teachings to the book of Revelation. There we go. And what we always recommend are the first 4 teachings. So there's 15 teachings in this series right here, the intro series, but we always recommend the first 4. This one, a 22-minute intro to what you're going to hear in the next 3, is to get you to understand some of the things that are coming next. The second one is a 30-minute Bible study that will begin to reveal to you why we have differences specifically in the synoptic gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Things like, why was Jesus' robe in going to the cross in Luke gorgeous, which means white, radiant, and beautiful, like a gorgeous gown, like a wedding gown? Why in Mark was he arrayed in purple, and Matthew, he was arrayed in scarlet? Well, we have the answers. We can prove it to you because the answer is prophecy. And it's not just in that, it is in dozens and dozens and dozens. All of the differences, so I shouldn't say all, dozens and dozens and dozens of differences. We have proven that they all reveal prophecy. The same story spoken of differently, or a chapter laid out differently than another based on the same context of what was supposed to be taking place. It all reveals prophecy. And what you begin to understand is that in the end, the last will be first, the first will be last. Matthew, Mark, Luke, in the end will play out as Luke, Mark, Matthew. And you know what it reveals? Pre, mid, post are all true. It will blow your mind, and this is a 30-minute intro. The third teaching is another 30-minute Bible study, but once you reveal and understand in the differences of who the Gospels are speaking to, and you understand that it's Luke and then Mark and then Matthew in their portions of time, you will realize that the end of days is not 7 years, but a 14-year period of time and a small portion called above, that's 50 days. The 50 days is connected to Luke, that starts with the pre-trib. Then you have 7 years of seals and 7 years of trumpets. It sounds crazy, and most people, they think that's the wildest part. But if you get to this one right here, you get to the fourth teaching. It's a bigger one, 2 hours and 43 minutes. When you get to this, you will understand the reason this wasn't yet understood or revealed is, one, it wasn't yet time, but two, is because it's all because of Matthew. We've all been taught from the Gospel of Matthew for hundreds of years, generation after generation, as if Mark and Luke were just side notes where we take a little bit from Luke and a little from Mark and try to fill in the gaps of Matthew. Well, the truth is they're each speaking to their own portion, the bride, the church, and the house of Judah. Or you could say the bride and then the Gentiles grafted in with the house of Israel, which is the church that remains during seals, that isn't fully in Christ, spirit-filled, repentant, diligently seeking. And then you've got the house of Judah, which is Matthew. That is what's happening. And you will understand that why everybody believes in 7 years is because they've all been taught from the Gospel of Matthew. And when they say everybody is going pre-trib in the great multitude rapture, it's because they're at the end of seals and there's only 7 years of trumpets left. They're at the end of Mark's gospel, and now 7 years of trumpets begins. When you see this, when you understand it, everything around it opens up and becomes incredibly, incredibly clear. So these are the four that we recommend to everybody. The other thing, if you're new and you want to watch little tidbits at a time, we have this ministry here called Revealing Revelation. And in this one, we show short teachings. It just started a couple of weeks ago. This is the intro, and there's been 3 teachings so far, and there's been a few shorts as well that have been posted, a couple. Another one I think is coming tomorrow. And this is a great way to begin to understand it in short, 10 to 15 minute teachings where it's not overwhelming. I don't teach with a fire hose. And another thing about this is that within these videos, we have them translated, voice translated into 10 other languages, and these are all the languages with all of the links, so you will hear my voice in those languages being spoken, and everybody can now share them with family and friends around the world. So it's very, very exciting. We're grateful for all of this. We thank you for your help in helping us to get to this point. Having helped with the book years ago, it's an incredible, incredible time, brothers and sisters. And this is going to be another one of those awesome teachings. So pay attention, okay? Pay attention. Let's get started. Let's go to John chapter 20. This is something we've taught on in the last little while. We've touched on it here and there to make points on occasion. And we're in John chapter 21. Again, I'm going to mention this because a brother mentioned it the other day, and it's great. I don't always go to the very top. I don't always go to the very top to let you know what chapter I'm in. I generally remember to mention it, but if I don't, just look to the right when I'm on Bible Gateway, and you'll see what chapter I'm in. All right? So we see from John 21, verse 15 through 17, we see, feed my lambs, feed my sheep, feed my sheep. Why are there 3? The same reason there's Luke, Mark, Matthew. We've broken these down before. What do we know about the lambs? Everybody who is in Christ pre-trib, okay? The whole of the bride going as well as the remnant who are chosen to stay. They are all lambs. They are all kings and priests. They are all little stones, lively stones. But there's a remnant from among them that are remaining, that are this Moses and Elijah company, chosen to remain. We know that they are the kings and priests of who? Of the kings and priests who have all gone, going pre-trib. There's a remnant from among them staying. And they're going to serve the Lord, to suffer as the Lord did, to bring in his great multitude during the time of seals. They're going to be put to death, most of them during seals, a lot of them during seals, some of them during seals. And they're going to be resurrected at the end to rule and reign. We know this. What do we know about this group? They are lambs, as the Lord is the Lamb. They are lively stones, as the Lord is the living stone. He is the rock. We are the little rocks. What else do we know? Jesus is the light. Jesus is the light. And when he comes on the 8th day, on this date that we know he's coming, he is coming as the light of the world. And he's coming to what? Shine his light in the darkness. And it's that remnant group, that light will be increased within them, and they will go out as the little lambs. They will go out as the lively stones. They will go out as the light of Yeshua. Do you know what else they're given? That's what we're getting into tonight. You know what else is represented? You've got stones, you've got light, you've got lambs. There's something else that's connected to it. And you've heard what it is before, but you've never understood its connection to them before, as I'm going to share with you now. Or at least I don't believe you will have. Okay? What else? We see Jesus as the light, right? Look at how clear it is. In John chapter 1, verse 4, starting in verse 4. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light, which light? Jesus, who is the light, right? Shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. We know what that's connected to, right? Genesis 1, verse 3. And then it says, and there was a man sent from God, whose name was John. The same was what? A witness. What do we know about John? John is the Elijah company type, that Moses, the Elijah company type for the end of days. And he came to be a witness of the light. He wasn't the light. Jesus is the light, and he came to bear witness. And what do we know about Luke chapter 24? Only Luke chapter 24, the last chapter of Luke, compared to Mark and Matthew, only the ones in Luke 24, the ones that represent the remnant workers, are the ones called the witnesses. Of course, they're the witnesses as John the Baptist, and they will witness the light when he comes to begin his 40 days. Okay, he, John, was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That light was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. But as many received him, listen to this. There's two different types of people here. But as many received him, to them he gave he power to become what? The sons of God. The sons of God, you know who they are. That is everybody who is in Christ pre-trib, going to the third heaven, as well as that remnant, as John, who will bear witness of that light when he comes on the 8th day. Now listen to this. Even to them. See, this is another group. Even to them that what? Believe on his name. Isn't that two different types? That's exactly two different types. Who are these sons of God here? The ones that received him. Received him what? When he comes on for the 40 days. Okay? It's everybody pre-trib and the remnant who were chosen to remain, who received him. And then you've got a group that what? Oh, even to them that believe on his name. Who are the church? The church are those who believe on his name, but are caught up in the things of this world. And their last chance is through this time of seals. Okay? So we understand stones and lambs and light. Okay? We see this again with the light. When we've understood the mystery and the revelation of what we call Luke in order, chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, here we are in the 40 days of the Son of Man in Luke chapter 2, and we know in verse 32, he is a light to lighten the Gentiles and the glory of thy people Israel. Because the Gentiles are what? Grafted into the house of Israel. And it's a light to lighten. He's only here for 40 days, though. So who's going to do the work for him? Who's going to do the rest of the work during seals if everybody's gone? Of course, we know not everybody's gone, right? We know not everybody's gone. There is a remnant portion from among the bride. He doesn't need 104. I believe the number pre-trib will be 144 million. I've explained it in the past. But there's no need for 144 million people to be going around working during seals. You see what I'm saying? There is a remnant group being prepared for the times of the end, and people throughout history have understood this. Not everybody, but numerous people throughout history have understood this. Right? I talked about it again the other day with a brother of ours, Olu, that even Sir Isaac Newton, he spent more time trying to discern and understand prophecy than he did with math. That's true. And what did he say? I can't remember it verbatim, but he said at the time of the end, there would be a group of men who would seek out the true literal meaning of the scriptures, and this would be this preparation of people at this time of the end. That's happening now more than ever. It's exactly what's happening here. That's why in his time, he couldn't understand what we knew, because it was a time to prepare a people for the end. And this is the Lord coming for that 40 days to shed that light on the Gentiles. Okay? To shine that light on the Gentiles. But those are three things. Light, lambs, and stones. All of these things that represent Christ. But you know what? There's something else that the Lord has when he comes at the end of seals. We see it everywhere. We even see it when he comes post-trib, feet down. It's something that has been right in front of us, like I said, that we've talked about, but never associated its true meaning and purpose to a group who will remain to serve him. Because if they are the quote-unquote, as I've said in the past, like the little Christs, right? The lambs, the stones, the light, doing his work to bring in the people of light, to bring in the church, they're going to suffer as he suffered, right? That's something we talked about. We see it right here. Here are the ones in Romans chapter 8, starting verse 14. For as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. So who are the sons of God? Those who are led by the Spirit of God. Who are the ones led by the Spirit of God? Those who are in Christ, Spirit-filled. They're part of the initial Spirit creation, and they're the ones that are going pre-trib, above 14 years, to the third heaven. Except for a remnant of them. Okay? A remnant of them, and even though all going pre-trib are heirs and co-heirs, there is a remnant chosen to serve the Lord from among the bride that we call the Elijah company, the Moses company. And here's what we read in Romans 8:17. And if children, then heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ, if so be that we suffer with him. If we suffer with him, that we may be what? Also glorified together. This glorified in the Strong's is used one time. What was the glorification of Christ? His resurrection. What is the glorification? How are these people going to be glorified together as Christ was glorified? They're the ones that take part in the resurrection at the end. And in their resurrection, at the end of tribulation, to be resurrected to rule and reign with him for 1,000 years, they're the ones who suffered for him. We know that the ones who suffered for him are the ones who represent the church of Smyrna, directly connected to when the Lord returns in the revelation of the 7 churches of the end of days. It represents the above 50 days to the end of the 14 years in the mystery of the revelation of the 7 churches at the end. If you're interested, go watch it in the intro series. It is mind-blowing to see how it plays out in the 7 churches, as it will repeat again. It'll go from where we are now in the end of the Laodicean age, and it will become, at the moment of the pre-trib, it will start over with the church of Ephesus. This church of Smyrna is the representation of that remnant group. And what do we know about them? It's the only church that says they will suffer. It's the only church that says some of you will be put into prison. And it's also the only one that the overcomer in Revelation chapter 2, verse 11 says, this group shall not be hurt of the second death. What does that mean? Most of you guys know exactly what that means, right? It's Revelation chapter 20. Those who were beheaded for not taking the mark and not worshiping the beast and or his name or his number. This group specifically chosen to serve the Lord as little lords, as little pieces of Christ, these little stones, they will take place in the resurrection and rule and reign with him as what? Kings and priests during the millennial reign. Kings and priests. That's something to remember. Now, here we are in Luke chapter 1. What do we know about the story of John the Baptist? The story of John the Baptist, his father Zechariah was a priest. And what was his mother Elizabeth? She was of the daughters of Aaron. Aaron, how fitting was that? So not only prophets, but priests, right? It's prophets and priests. And you're going to see that this story where we're going into has its connection directly to Aaron. How fitting that it's connected to Aaron. John the Baptist was a descendant through the lineage of Aaron, the priests. That's exactly what we've been talking about with this group, prophets and priests. Prophets and priests through the Elijah company, the Moses company, this remnant group of workers that are represented by two and thousands of people. I believe 12,000 and 12,000 for one for each, 12,000 for the Moses, 12,000 for the Aaron, and they work in the same kind of power and authority as Moses and Aaron. As Moses and Elijah. But their work are what we call the priests and prophets, right? Combined together. So the fact that John the Baptist himself was both priest and prophet is perfectly fitting for what we're going to be going into next. Watch this. Because this was to establish with you the things we've understood very, very, very well. That who this group is, who they represent. Who are they going to be serving? They are serving Christ in the will of the Father to do the work of the Lord himself, to serve in his power, in his authority, with the power of the Holy Ghost. That is what is about to take place with this remnant group. And yet, at the end of seals, Christ is always seen coming with something. Let's go have a look. Let's start right here. We'll go for what? About 4 or 5 minutes, it looks like. Listen to this. I have it on, if you're listening a little bit faster, if that's the way you like to look, you're listening to Ministry Revealed a little bit faster, you might want to slow it down. I've got this only at 1.25, so it just helps speed it up a little bit.
The rod of Elohim makes another appearance. And Amalek came to fought with Yisrael in Rephidim. And Moshe said to Yehoshua, choose for us men to go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I am stationing myself on top of the hill with the rod of Elohim in my hand. What rod is this speaking of? And Yehoshua did as Moshe said to him, to fight with Amalek. And Moshe, Aharon, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And it came to be, when Moshe held up his hand, that Yisrael prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moshe's hands were heavy, so they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it, and Aharon and Hur supported his hands, one on each side and the other one on the other side, and his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Yehoshua defeated Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. This is a beautiful type of shadow. Aharon means light bringer, he who bears light. Hur, it can mean a pit or a hole, but it can also mean white linen. The word for stone is even, which is made up of both Av and Ben. So if you look here, this is even, Aleph and the Beit makes Av, father, and Ben means son, the Beit and the Nun. So the stone, this should point us back to when we did the anointed stone teaching in the Son of God series. We end up with a picture of someone on a mountain with the rod of authority of Elohim. Now where's Messiah going to be ruling from? Mount Zion. He is sat upon the rock, Father, Son. He is supported by those clothed in white linen that are a light to the world.
Clothed in white linen, who are a light to the world, is the description of what? The two helping to hold Moses' arms up. Does that sound familiar? You mean like the two who are the witnesses, not the Moses and Elijah that relate to the trumpets, which are truly in trumpets time, they are the two messiahs, which is Jesus and the lesser one being Zerubbabel, whoever that is in the end of days. These are the witnesses who are represented, as we've talked about often, by the two on the road to Emmaus. The two on the road to Emmaus, the Moses and the Elijah types, dressed in white linen, who are the lights of the world, the two remnant portions of the end. But keep listening, because you notice there was a rod involved.
This results in the defeat of a pagan nation. He smote them with the edge of who was it that smote them with the edge of the sword? Joshua, Yehoshua. Contract that, what do you get? Yeshua. I believe this is a picture of Messiah ruling with his bride, actually, and vanquishing the nations with the rod of Elohim in his hand. So
you see that? So the Messiah ruling with his bride. Now, I'm going to be in, as we get to him in another segment, we're going to go put it all together with these additional pieces at closer to the end. I want you to understand, I'm going to be just showing a few clips here and a little couple pieces here and a couple pieces along the way, because I don't want you to get confused. You're going to hear him speak as if all of the bride is going to stay. And you're going to see him speaking, knowing what you know about things that are like end of seals. And that he's there with his rod and leading a group. Well, we know that that time is when he's leading the 144,000, which is exactly where this huge aha and everything came flooding into me, because I realized when he's coming at the end of seals, we know what he has in his hand, and we know at that point he is high priest and king, and so he will be leading a people as high priest and king, no longer needing high priests and kings there as what? The priests and kings who were there for him as representatives of him during seals. And it all made sense. Let's keep listening.
So now we have a bridal link to this rod of Elohim. And this is where Curtis was like, I think you need to kind of go, maybe go down this road. And I was like, of course. And then everything kind of, you know how everything, like all the ducks go boom, 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 boom. That's what occurred. Therefore, the rod of Elohim becomes connected to the bride of Messiah. Because you have an individual holding that, surrounded by the bride. Bearers of light wearing white linen.
Bearers of white wearing white linen, representing a rod who is given the authority with it. Keep it in mind.
Revelation 12:5. She bore a male child who was to shepherd all the nations with a rod of iron. Again, what was Moshe holding in his hand when Yah shows up in the
Now we know this is towards the end of the 6-year seals.
bush? He was holding a shepherd's rod. And her child was caught away to Elohim into his throne. Revelation 19:14. The armies in the heaven, dressed in fine linen, white and clean, followed him on white horses. There's Aaron and Hur, either side of Moshe. And out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations. This is what Yehoshua did to Amalek. And he shall shepherd them with a rod of iron. And he treads the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of El Shaddai. Now again, is Messiah literally going to be holding a rod of iron?
You see that? He just went end of seals and end of trumpets, talking about the Lord having his rod with him. That rod of iron. It's the rod, this connection to the rod. And he's talking unknowingly about the end of seals when he comes, and about the end of trumpets. What about during seals? Where's the rod during seals, and where's the connection to this rod during seals? That's what we're talking about.
Or is it speaking of his authority that does not break, that is immovable? Moshe, the good shepherd, Moshe, the shepherd of Yisrael, is a type and shadow of Messiah, the good shepherd, even down to the rod. They both have a rod. And whose authority is it? It's the authority of Elohim. To he who overcomes and guards my works until the end, to him I shall give authority over the nations, and he shall...
Okay, so again, what's he talking about there? He's talking about the rod. The rod again. So Moses holding the rod in this representation of Christ, And this rod is what has the authority. Okay, this rod is given, like he's saying, to this bride, which is really the remnant portion of the bride, are given this rod as the authority of Christ. Well, of course it makes sense. At the end of seals, he's coming with the rod. At the end of trumpets, he's coming with the rod. What about the connection to the rod at the beginning? What about the connection at the beginning? You guys already know what the answer is. What about the connection to a rod at the beginning, brothers and sisters? It's exactly when he comes. It's so awesome. Let's keep listening.
Shall shepherd them with a rod of iron. As the potter's vessel shall be broken to pieces, as I also have received from my Father.
This is end of Revelation 2, the end of
We
seals.
see here the overcomers, and we've done this ad nauseum, that this is speaking of bride. They shepherd the nations with the same rod as Messiah.
Hear that? We see here the overcomers, the bride, shepherding the nations with the same rod as Messiah. No, that's not exactly what you see here, because this is the end of seals of him coming with the authority with that rod. But he is correct, because remember, if you only understand 7 years, if you only understand this vision, this understanding from Matthew, if you don't understand, there's more than just the workers of the 144. You see, when you understand the whole story of tribulation, the big picture and how it plays out within Luke, Mark, Matthew, from the beginning of Genesis to the end of Revelation, you understand this Moses connection isn't connected to the end of seals, but that there's a deeper mystery that these guys can't yet understand in their 7 years in Matthew focus. But you see, this is why I love these guys. Especially this brother. He's a great teacher. He sees these things, but he can't quite put them. He believes he's got them in the right spot, but he can't quite put them in the right spot because he's missing the rest of the understanding. But he's right. He gets it. You see, the overcomers, who are the bride, who are the remnant, who are the church of Smyrna, are what? Shepherding the nations with the same rod as Messiah. Well, what's the one thing we didn't yet cover that these guys represent as Messiah? The rod. Well, what is this rod? When does the rod come? What's the rod connected to? How do we get the rod? You'll get it when he comes. Now, again, like he's saying, are we all going to be walking around with physical rods? I don't think so. Right? I wouldn't say we would be, but it would be under this power and the authority represented as this rod. Because what are we doing? As the bride, so it says, see, as the overcomers, the bride shepherding the nations with the same rod as Messiah. This is the remnant, Luke portion, the remnant bride, the Smyrna group, shepherding the nations with the same rod as Messiah. So if it's during seals, before he comes with his rod, and at the end of trumpets when he comes to rule and reign with that rod, then where is this rod at the beginning?
Messiah gets to shepherd the nations with a rod of iron. So do the overcomers. Are they wielding different rods? Moshe the king and Aaron the high priest both wielded the rod of Elohim, which I'm making the point that they were the same rod. Messiah is both king and high priest, so he can hold the rod of Elohim, which means that his bride must both be kings and priests for them to wield the same rod. Does this bring...
Bam. See that? So he's saying that the Moses-Aaron type, right, as king and high priest picture of Christ in the two of them, this means that the bride, which is the remnant portion as we know, must both be kings and priests, which we know they are, for them to wield the same rod. Which rod is this? You see, everything in this rod-wielding context that he's talking about is unbeknownst to him end of seals time. But end of seals, the Lord is coming with his rod as high priest and king, which we will cover again a little further in. So what need is there for high priest and kings, for priests and kings during that portion forward? No. At the end of seals, as we'll cover later, he is there leading a flock, leading a group as high priest and king with his rod. They're not high priests and kings. They don't have rods. It's the first portion of people who do. When is the timing of that rod? What is that rod? What's this Moses and Aaron wielding the same rod as Christ? Some of you, I could already hear, even though this is being recorded hours ahead before anybody hears it, I could already sense people saying, oh yeah, baby, right where we've understood. Yeah, that's right. Right where it's been understood. Right? That same two on the road to Emmaus, the same ones that when he returns from the wedding, he sits down to eat and serves them. It's only found in Luke. It's the same ones where he opens their understanding, that they would understand the scriptures. It's that they would suffer as well, which we see in Smyrna. We see that they are the witnesses. And that brings me to how we get to this. How did this come about here today? It was our brother Orlando's share. He was looking in to what is in the Ark of the Covenant. So in Hebrews chapter 9, in verse 4, it said, which had a golden censer, and the Ark of the Covenant overlaid round about with gold, wherein was, listen to this, the golden pot that had manna, comma, and something separate, but in there, Aaron's rod that budded, there's your clue, right? Comma, and the tables of the covenant. Now, let me ask you a question about this, okay? The golden pot that had manna, Aaron's rod that budded, and the tables of the covenant. It's directly in line. Watch this. It's so powerful because there's what? How many times do we say things happen in threes, right? Everything is happening in threes, brothers and sisters. What do we know about this three? What do we know about this three? The 3 times to the Lord where they're not to come empty-handed. What do we know? We know it's unleavened bread, right? The Feast of Passover, which is unleavened bread, 6 days, and then the 7th. That represents seals. The 6 years, and then the 7th year, the solemn assembly. We know that Tabernacles, Feast of Booths, is 7 days as the 7 years of trumpets, and the 8th day is the Jubilee, which is called the New Beginning. And it's the 8th day that is the solemn assembly. But right here in the middle, we have the Feast of Weeks, of which the first fruits of the Feast of Weeks of the wheat harvest, as Deuteronomy 34:24, I think, tells us, they are the Feast of Weeks of the first fruits of the wheat harvest that go to the Lord. Well, that's at the Feast of Weeks. But what do we know about this mystery of these 3 events? They represent the 3 portions of the end of days. It begins with the Feast of Weeks, does it not? As we've taught, it's Feast of Weeks. So it's 7-1-7. It begins with 1, and then you have 7 and 7. 7 years of seals, 7 years of trumpets. And the Feast of Weeks, what do we know about this mystery of the Feast of Weeks? The middle one becomes the first one, and we're told in John 4 that it's observed 4 months early. Jesus says, oh, you think the harvest is coming in 4 months? To which they must have said, yeah, it's like 4 months from now, Lord. To which he then says, look and lift up your eyes, for the fields are already white and ready to harvest. There's only one thing that comes 4 months earlier. And we've proven what that is, and its representation to the workers, not the pre-trib that happens the week earlier, but to the Lord returning on the 8th day, when he meets with the workers and returns from the wedding and has that banquet meal and sits with them and serves them, wherever that might take place. We know this is the one that comes first, but it's observed 4 months early. The middle becomes the first one. The middle one becomes the first one. The middle one becomes the first one. Can we prove that out with what we see that's in the Ark of the Covenant? You mean like even though the golden pot of manna is mentioned first, the golden pot which had the manna, do we know what happens with the relation to the golden pot of manna? Manna is served in the midst of seals when they flee into the wilderness. Aaron's rod that budded represents the priests who are chosen as the remnant bride portion that we've been talking about when he returns from the wedding, which would be at the same day that Aaron's rod budded. First, then second, which represents seals, and then what do you have? The tables of the covenant. When does the Lord make the new covenant? Right? When does he make the new covenant in Jeremiah 31 in relation to the end of days? At the end of seals. And that covenant is for that remnant port, the Judah portion and all of that the trumpet stuff that's still coming. And the covenant is confirmed right near the end of the sixth trumpet. And then he returns feet down on the Mount of Olives. Pre-group or remnant, seals portion when manna is given, which is why we see the manna in Revelation chapter 2 in Pergamum, which is in the midst of seals, which represents the time they're to flee into the wilderness from Mark's discourse. And then you've got tables of the covenant representing the portion of trumpets, and specifically to the end of trumpets when that covenant is confirmed. All in the revelation of the end of days revealed in Deuteronomy 16. Why would the middle one here be first as well, just as the Feast of Weeks? Because Aaron, as the priestly line, as a worker type with Moses, as king and priest, what did they have? What was specific to Aaron? The rod that budded. The rod that budded. It's the direct link to the prophetic picture of the remnant workers of the end of days. And when you see it in relation to how Feast of Weeks is going to be observed 4 months early, because it's going to be when the New Year of Trees happens. Hello? It doesn't seem to make sense. Of course they knew the wheat wasn't going to be ready for 4 months. So how is it that Jesus was saying the wheat's going to be ready 4 months early to start harvesting? Doesn't make any sense. It's the mystery of the end of days. It wasn't like wheat was ready 4 months earlier in late January, early February. So it had to be something else. And of course, we all know it's the budding of the almond blossoms and all of the almond blossoms falling to the ground and making the ground white. That's what it is. And it goes first. And it's connected to what? Aaron, John the Baptist lineage, Aaron's rod, the middle one becoming the first in relation to the three feasts. Exactly in order, just as it shows us. Now, what do we know about a group who are priests and kings? Who are this group of priests and kings? You all know, we've talked about them before. They're, of course, the remnant servants of Christ, right? Just like John the Baptist. It says, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass, and he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John. Okay? Who are these people? Right here. And hath made us kings and priests unto God and his Father. All of this is connected to the same story as the Moses-Aaron characters, as the remnant workers, kings and priests. Where else do we see this? The Smyrna group, right? Again, we know that they are the remnant, the Smyrna group, those who will suffer for the Lord. Some of them put into prison, some of them put to death. But they will not be hurt by the second death, and that not being hurt by the second death only happens right here in Revelation 20. Those who died as witnesses for Jesus, it says, lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years, but the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he that has part in the first resurrection. On such the second death has no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign, which means king, with him 1,000 years. Priests and kings, it's all connected to that Smyrna group. And where does it begin in the story? Aaron, who is the first priest / high priest in Scripture? Aaron. How did Aaron become anointed as high priest? We saw this story, right? We see it right here in Exodus 28. And take thou unto thee Aaron thy brother and his sons with him, along with the children of Israel, that he might minister unto me in the priest's office. Okay, this is where we see it in Exodus 28. Now watch this. You want to see where the answer comes from? You want to see this connection to this important rod? Right here in Numbers chapter 17, starting in verse 2. Listen to this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 times the word rod or rods are mentioned in this one chapter. Do you think it's important? Of course it's important. It's the beginning of the priestly line. Did you hear that? It's the beginning of the priestly line that begins with what? A rod. A rod to a person or people who represent the authority of Christ, you see, who isn't going to be there with a rod. Remember that connection to end of seals and end of trumpets. Let's see what it says. In Numbers 17, starting in verse 2. Speak unto the children of Israel, and take of every one of them a rod according to the house of their fathers, of all their princes according to the house of their fathers, 12 rods. Write thou every man's name upon his rod. And thou shalt write Aaron's name upon the rod of Levi, for 1 rod shall be for the head of the house of their fathers. Verse 5. And it shall come to pass that the man's rod, whom I shall choose, shall blossom. You guys all know this story. And I will make to cease from me the murmurings of the children of Israel, whereby they murmur against you. And Moses spake unto the children of Israel, every one of their princes gave him a rod apiece, for each prince one, according to their father's house, even 12 rods, and the rod of Aaron among their rods. Make it a point. And Moses laid up the rods before the Lord in the tabernacle of witness. And it came to pass, on the morrow Moses went into the tabernacle of witness, and behold, the rod of Aaron of the house of Levi was budded, and brought forth buds, and bloomed blossoms, and yielded almonds. Hello. And yielded all almonds. Let's go have a look at that. Let's go to, where are we? Numbers 17. And yielded almonds. We all know what this is, right? It's the almond tree. It's the almond branch. It's the first tree that blossoms. It comes from the root word 8245, which means to be alert, sleepless, be on the lookout, hasten, remain, wake, watch for. These are all things we've talked about in relation to the almond tree before. And over the years, many people have talked and spoken on it, and us as well. But in the recent year, the last year, it has become wildly more important. But why is it important? What is the importance of having this almond, this rod connection to a remnant group? What's the purpose? We already know who they're representing. Those who are watching and praying. Those who are diligently seeking and searching. A remnant group being prepared for the time of the end. This is the wording that we get in Luke 21. In Luke 21, verse 36, watch ye therefore and pray always that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass and to stand before the Son of Man. That's the same watch. To be watching, to be alert, to be sleepless. It's this remnant group connected to the almond blossom, connected to the rod of the almond tree. But why? We know it's connected to the beginning, right? The week after the pre-trib, all we have to do is chase down the definition of the word. It's only used 4 times. In Genesis 43:11, it's used just in the description of nuts for almond. But there's number 17 we covered. We got Ecclesiastes 12 and Jeremiah 1. Let's go have a look. Ecclesiastes 12. Right from the beginning, you can go through it. Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them, while the sun or the moon, or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. Starts to sound familiar, right? These signs in the sun, moon, and stars. Well, when we go down further, let's keep reading. Verse 3, in the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease, because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened, and the doors shall be shut in the streets, when the sound of the grinding is low. And he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. Also, when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and fears shall be in the way. That's almost a carbon copy of what we talk about in Luke chapter 21 that happens during that 1 week wedding. The stone's throw, these events, these things that are coming from above. We see it right here in Luke 21:25. And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the seas and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear, for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then what happens? And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a singular cloud, as we've talked about many times, with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draws nigh. This redemption are the remnant workers. This is the redemption of the remnant workers waiting for their Lord when he returns and knocks on the door. And during that week, just as he's about to come at the end of that 7 days, on the 8th day, men's hearts are failing them for the fear of what's coming. And look at what it says next. Right after all the fear and afraid for these things which are high, what do we see? And the almond tree shall flourish. When does the almond tree flourish? The actual date in the calendar is the exact same date that follows this 1 week of the chaos that happens after the pre-trib, the light affliction in northern Israel and Haifa and Tel Aviv by Iran and those with them. Then things settle down, and in the midst of that, this meteors, whatever it is, breaking up and coming upon the earth in that week. And bam, it's now the time of the almond tree. The almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden, and desire shall fail, because man goeth to his long home. Right? This is that pre-trib group going to their long home. And the mourners go out about the streets. Let's go to Ecclesiastes in here in eSword. Okay? And they go to their long home. Look at this vanishing point. It's awesome, right? Their vanishing point. There's the almond tree, and just to strengthen the understanding of it, in Ecclesiastes 12 verse 6, or ever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain. What pitcher? What pitcher? The jar, the pitcher? You mean like connected to the tribe of Reuben, the man with the pitcher of water? When the water is poured out and seed goes out? You mean that water? What do we know about Aaron's rod, brothers and sisters? What do we know about when Aaron's rod budded? What do we know about when it budded? We know it was the almond one. So when is it believed that Aaron's rod blossomed? Yeah, you guessed it. Late January to early February. Why is it believed late January to early February? Because it's the time of the New Year of Trees. And in 2026, that's February 2nd. February 2nd is the New Year of Trees, the time of the anointing, the choosing of the remnant bride workers who will need what? Who will need that representation of a rod of authority that comes from Christ to go out and rule over the nations. Now, I'm not talking about the end in the millennial reign. I'm talking about the authority with his rod during the time of seals, when he is not here. Remember, he's here for 40 days at this point. He's here for 40 days, having returned from the wedding. This is the 4 months early. This is the beginning of the Aarons, the modern day Aarons in relation to Moses and Aaron, that Elijah Moses company. The John the Baptist, the prophets, the priests and kings. Literally on the day that the revelation revealed in the two calendars and the 50 days before the 14 years, which begins at the Red Horse Rider. There's always a connection to a rod. We've understood the almond tree. We know it means watch. But we never understood its power as to why this has to be connection, why there would need to be a prophetic end time connection even to the almond blossom. Sure, Aaron had it, and Aaron's blossomed, believed to be at this time of the New Year of Trees, because it's the almond tree that blossoms first. Excuse me, that blossoms first. But on top of it all, what else is it? It's Aquarius, from around January 20th to February 18th. Aquarius is, of course, the man with the pitcher of water. Oh, that man with the pitcher of water again. And the pitcher being broken at the fountain. Where do we see the pitcher of water and a fountain? We see it in Genesis 29 with Jacob and the two brides, right? The two sisters. It starts there. When we go to the story of what is it? John chapter 4. Of course, the story of John chapter 4 is the woman at the well and getting the pitcher of water. And both of those are symbolic of the end of days and their timing, which is all connected to everything being spoken about here, which is all connected to the time of the almond tree, right in the midst of the month that is connected to Aquarius and the time of Aaron, which of course is to the awesome piece of scripture in Numbers 24, 7 through 9, that is 100% unequivocal the description of the 1, 2, 3 comings of Christ in the end of days, when he comes to pour the water out of his buckets, and his seed shall be in many waters. That is the priestly line of the end of days. These are the kings and priests being spoken about. These are when Christ, listen to this carefully. When Christ comes as the end of seals, we'll cover this in a bit, but he's coming as what? King and priest. He is coming as what? High priest and king. Uppercase H, uppercase P, uppercase K. Uppercase K. High priest and king. If the co-heirs that were serving him before as priests and kings, lowercase, what would they also have to have? His authority and power and so forth, right? They're co-heirs with him. They're doing his work for him during seals. And this is them right there, connected directly to the time of the man with the pitcher of water, which is Aquarius, which is the tribe of Reuben to the south. Now, what was the other one? Well, we had Jeremiah chapter 1, right? There's the other one in relation to the almond tree. So we go to Jeremiah chapter 1. We see Jeremiah is like, I'm just a kid, man. I'm freaking out. What am I supposed to do? And the Lord told him that in Jeremiah 1, starting in verse 5, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. Before thou came forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. Verse 8, be not afraid of their faces. We saw that before, right? Be not afraid of their faces, for I am with thee to deliver thee, saith the Lord. Verse 9. We'll continue from verse 9. Then the Lord put forth his hand and touched my mouth. And the Lord said unto me, behold, I have put my words in thy mouth. You know, that reminds me of Luke chapter 21. I'm not saying it's the exact, but it's in that range. Or sorry, Luke 24. When he appears to them, the two that we keep referring, that Smyrna group represented as Luke, and he sits with them and eats with them, and their understanding is opened, that they would understand the scriptures. It reminds me of the same kind of scenario, that same typology at play. Jeremiah 4, verse 10. See, I have this day set thee over the nations and over the kingdoms, to root out and to pull down and to destroy and to throw down, to plant and to build. Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Jeremiah, what seest thou? And I said, I see a rod of an almond tree. There's that rod of an almond tree again. This representation of the priestly line. This authority being given to a priestly line. When does it happen? Listen carefully. Then said the Lord unto me, thou hast well seen, for I will hasten. This word hasten is the same word we saw earlier for watch. It's the same word for hasten, Hebrew 82:45. Do you know what it also means? I will wake my word to perform it. That means no more holding back. It's time. The end is beginning. Verse 13 says, and the word of the Lord came unto me the second time, saying, what seest thou? And I said, I see a seething pot, and the face thereof is toward the north. We talked about it, right? What's from the north? It goes on to tell us. Then the Lord said unto me, out of the north an evil shall break forth upon all the inhabitants of the land. We know that very well. Jeremiah chapter 4. We've taught on this many times over the years. Verse 6 of Jeremiah 4. Set up the standard toward Zion, retire, stay not, for I will bring evil from the north and a great destruction. It's the same conversation. Who is this evil from the north? The lion that's coming up from the thicket. Who is the lion coming up from the thicket? We know it's going to be Syria and those with them. Here's the first beast. The one that was a lion. It's the one that comes first. In Jeremiah 4, it then says, and the destroyer of the Gentiles is on his way. Who's the destroyer of the Gentiles that comes next? It's the bear. Russia coming. What about Isaiah 9? Isaiah 9 tells us about it, right? Son of man coming after the light affliction. Then there's going to be a great affliction, the Syrians before and the Philistines behind. It'll devour Israel with an open mouth. And what does it say? They'll come and do it in one day. What does Jeremiah 4 go on to tell us as we go down further? Sound the trumpet, the alarm of war. Destruction upon destruction is cried, for the whole land is spoiled. Suddenly are my tents spoiled, and my curtains in a moment. Same context of time. Jeremiah 1 to Jeremiah 4. It's all about this coming at the beginning. And what came before the seething pot? The almond blossom. It's all about this rod of almond. Everything is telling us it is the rod of almond. Yes, is there an event that happens before the rod of almond? Yeah, the pre-trib. It is the revelation of the 50 days that would begin at the pre-trib, depending where you are on earth. The beginning of the pre-trib. Vanish. I believe somewhere around 144 million people. About 1.8% of the population of the world. Boom, gone. The first light affliction takes place. They're going to see things coming that men's hearts will be failing them. This short affliction, the light attack in northern Israel and Iran and all that will be settled within a week. And men's hearts failing them for freaking out and all this. And they don't want to start World War III in the midst of this chaos. And then the Lord shows up at the New Year of Trees. Which comes before what? Which comes before the Lion of the North, once the 40 days are over and the compassing about happens before the attack at Nisan 1, in that range of Nisan 1. And if we've understood the year 2026, and that is the beginning of the Red Horse Rider. All of these connections are telling us that it goes back to Jeremiah 1, that it goes back to the beginning with this remnant group, this authority given in a rod of an almond tree, just as it did with Aaron. And that branch followed them and went with them. They took it everywhere they went because it was the authority of the Lord with them. Look what Jeremiah chapter 1 continues on saying. After verse 14, from the evil breaks out from the north, verse 15, for lo, I will call all the families of the kingdom of the north, saith the Lord, and they shall come, and they shall set every one his throne at the entering of the gates of Jerusalem, and against all the walls thereof round about against the cities of Judah. Again, where do we see this? The story that's found only in Luke 19, not in the other Gospels, which is a picture of the Lord coming on the 8th day. And it says, when he came near and he wept over the city. He says, if they had known, at least in this thy day, the things which belong to thy peace, but now they are hid from thine eyes. For the days shall come upon thee, that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee, and compass thee about on every side, and they will lay you even with the ground, even your children, because you knew not the time of your visitation. It's the same wording we get in Luke 21, right? Verse 20. And when they shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Let them which be in Judea flee to the mountains, don't let them which come in, for these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may begin. This is the beginning now. He's here during 40 days, warning of this, and at the end of 40 days, the compassing about happens for a few days, and then Jerusalem is attacked, and the Red Horse Rider has begun. All of this has its first connection to starting with the rod of Aaron that budded. Not only was Aaron with Moses, and that was the beginning of the story of the almond blossom, representing priest or high priest, but it was also connected to John the Baptist, whose father is a priest and whose mother was the line of Aaron. As John the Baptist, priests and kings, brothers and sisters. That is the remnant group. They're not only, you have to remember, they're not only kings and priests in the millennial reign. They are kings and priests in the midst of seals because they're already kings and priests. Did you get that? Did you get that in Revelation chapter 1? Or was that? Revelation chapter 1? They are kings and priests already. Everybody in Christ, spirit-filled, going pre-trib are kings and priests. But it's the remnant from among them, chosen to serve and to suffer as he did, to be glorified as he will be, to then be in his presence, ruling as kings and priests in his authority with his rod. It's the rod of authority. If Smyrna is, which they are, that group, revealed right here, revealed from Luke right here, revealed from Romans right here, then what should the second one be? It should be the manna, should it not? And that's exactly what we see, right? Pergamos, the time of the beast and the false prophet coming to power, Midish seals, they flee into the wilderness of Mark's discourse, and look what happens. I will give to eat of the hidden manna. Second, and then first, and then third, just as Deuteronomy 16. But now watch this. You see, we saw that part where in the video, he's talking about these places of Christ with the rod of iron, but he doesn't realize that he's talking toward the end of seals and toward the end of trumpets. What do we know about the Lord when he comes at the end of the 6th year of seals? At the end of this 6th seal here. All right? Rocks, mountains fall on us. They're all freaking out. And said, hide us from the face of him that sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall stand? What is this portion? This is him coming right here. This is him coming at the end of the age of Thyatira. This is the end of the 6th year, at the end of the 6th seal. And what does it say? In verse 27 of Revelation 2, it says, and he shall rule them with a rod, there's your rod, of iron, as the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I received of my Father, and I will give him the morning star. What's he coming with at the end of seals? He's got his rod. Okay? His rod, yeah, it's a rod of iron, but he's coming with his rod. What do we see in Revelation 12:5? We know the pre-trib happens somewhere in here. Then you got the 40 days of the Son of Man. Then you've got World War III. And then you've got the midst of seals and the time of the beast rising up. Until what? Revelation 12 verse 5. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a, there it is again, rod of iron. And her child was caught up. There's the rapture that happens in the 7th year of seals. The group that goes to paradise, which he went to prepare and came back with heavenly Mount Zion. He came back with paradise to receive the church now that believed on him and came to him and remained with him during seals, in him during seals, or believing in him, I should say, who called on his name during seals, are now in paradise. When he came, again, there it is, the rod. Psalms 110. Psalms 110 is directly connected to this same time of the end of the 6th year of seals. And listen to what it says. The Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou at my right hand, until I make thine enemies thy footstool. The Lord shall send the rod of thy strength out of Zion. Rule thou in the midst of thine enemies. Thy people shall be willing in the day of thy power, in the beauties of thy holiness. From the womb of the morning thou hast the dew of thy youth. The Lord hath sworn and will not repent. Thou art a priest forever, after the order of Melchizedek. And then what does it do? And the Lord at thy right hand shall strike through kings in the day of his wrath. That's the Ezekiel 39 word. This is the end of the 6 year seals, when he's coming what? As high priest and king as Melchizedek, as we've shared. Right when he's coming as Melchizedek. What do we know, again, about him coming as Melchizedek? Do you know if we go to our chapters to years? Remember this in our chapters to years? We can go to Hebrews chapter 7. What's chapter 7? The Lord coming after the 6th year, right? Right in this time when all this is happening that we're talking about. And look what happens when we read Hebrews chapter 7. It's the same timing. For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, okay? King and high priest. We know he's king and high priest, right? He's a picture of Christ, to whom also Abraham gave a 10th part of all. First, being by interpretation king of righteousness, and after also king of Salem, which is king of peace. He is high priest and king. But it goes on to tell us a little bit more in a connection with Aaron. Hebrews 7 verse 11. If therefore perfection were by the Levitical priesthood, for under it the people received the law, what further need was there that another priest should arise after the order of Melchizedek, and not be called after the order of Aaron? Listen to this. For the priesthood being changed, there is made of necessity a change also of the law. Do you know what happens at this point? Literally, the prophetic picture in the timing of this conversation of Hebrews chapter 7, in the prophetic revelation of the end of days of its chapters to years, is literally at the time of what? The end of the priests and kings as Aaron and the John the Baptist, Elijah companies. It's the end of it. It's come to the end, see, for the priesthood being changed. There is made of necessity a change also of the law. And who's come at this point? Melchizedek. Melchizedek, who is high priest and king, who also is represented with the rod of his strength. Notice what he's coming with at the end of seals? When he comes as high priest and king, he is coming with the rod of his strength. He is coming with his rod of iron. When he comes with his rod of iron at the end of seals as the high priest and the king with his rod, what need is there at that point, still in tribulation, of a group of people being high priests and kings with their rods? At that point, what is he going to do? He is going to lead another group as what? As he is now high priest and king. What will he do? He will lead them. They will have a power and authority, absolutely, but they will not need that rod of power because the Lord is there as their rod. Do you know where we see this? We see this in Revelation 14, and I'll show it to you later in relation to the end of Mark. Here they are. When the 144,000 get sealed, which is in the beginning of the 7th year of seals. And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on Mount Zion, and with him the 144,000, having his Father's name written in their foreheads. Okay, the voice of many waters. They sang a new song, and no man could learn that song. But the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth. These are they which were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they, listen to this, which follow the Lamb wheresoever he goeth. Are you starting to catch what I'm telling you? I'll put it all together and make it really clear as we get to the end here. This group has no need for their own rod. There's no need for a connection with a timing to a rod, because Christ is here as the high priest and the high king with his rod, who they are following. as they go out during trumpets, as they go out to do their work while he's there leading them as high priest and king. While the Zerubbabel type is managing the rebuilding of Jerusalem and the temple in the first half of trumpets. But during seals, you see, this is the part that people don't see because they don't understand the years, the pre, mid, and post of Luke, Mark, Matthew, the three different remnant group of workers, the pre-trib remnant bride group that all of this is about. Then you have the 144. Then you have the 12 tribes that go out during the millennial reign. People haven't understood that. If both times, at the end of seals and at the end of trumpets, after what happens, then he returns and he's got the rod of his power again, and both times he's there with the rod because he is high priest and king, but he isn't at the beginning, except to set up the first priestly line, they have to be given the power and authority which is in his rod, which is him through his rod. That only happens at one time of year. Its direct connection is the almond blossom and the time of the new year of trees. The first remnant group that will serve the Lord, that will wait for him, be girded about, waiting for him when he returns from the wedding, that when he knocks and they open, he would come in and serve them. That remnant group must be connected to the rod. And the rod, as Aaron and John is connected, as John is connected to Aaron, is connected to the new year of trees, when the first priestly remnant are given power and are in the presence of the Lord with them at the banquet meal. There is no other time of year. There must be those who are as Christ, representatives of Christ, spirit-filled, doing his work in his will as little lambs, as little stones, as his light, with the authority and power of his rod. There's only one time a year. And that one time a year is the exact day that we have understood it to be from the revelation of the 2 calendar years and the revelation of the Gospels, to the revelation of the creations, to the revelation of the 3 feasts of the Lord. The one piece we didn't fully understand was this connection in the power of the rod. And that rod only connects to one time a year. You see this? When the Lord returns, feet down on the Mount of Olives, okay? It says, and I saw in Revelation 19:11, and I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he does judge and make war. His eyes were like a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had the name written that no man knew but himself. His vestitures dipped in blood. And as we go through, his vesture dipped in blood. Sharp mouth, out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. And this is, of course, the second sword, when it's the treading of the grapes. It's the final year, which is the days of Noah, as Matthew 24. But he's come with what again? With a rod. Remember when he, from that end of the 6th year of seals until the end of the 6th year of trumpets, the Lord is here the entire time. Hence, leading the 144,000 with the rod as the one as high priest and king, not needing them to be high priests and kings. You see? But they have power and authority as the 144. Then he's gone for a few days, as we know, which we'll not get into. And then at the 7th trumpet, He returns immediately as soon as that seventh trumpet sounds. The mystery is over. As Revelation 10 says, as soon as the seventh trumpet begins to sound, the mystery is over. Why? Because now the Lord is returning, feet down on the Mount of Olives, and there's only hours in between. At most, maybe an hour or two. But, 3.5 days, as we know. 3.5 days, then they rise, and he comes down like an hour later, the start of the seventh trumpet. And when he returns, is he no longer high priest and king? Of course he's still high priest and king. And what is he returning with? His rod of iron. Do you know what happens at this point? We know what happens, right? We know that there is the resurrection of Revelation chapter 20. We go to Revelation chapter 20, and what do we see? We have the resurrection of that group who are the high priests and kings, having put their necks on the line, who are the Smyrna group, who had his rod, who were chosen at the time of the rod, who sat and had a banquet meal with him after the wedding. They're now being resurrected to rule and reign with them as priests and kings. Does there have to be a connection to them having a rod anymore? No. Because the authority who is Christ as the high priest and the king now has his rod of authority and power in their presence with them. So they will go out ruling and reigning in his authority during the millennial reign. All of this has a connection to the rod. And if he's coming with the rod at the end of seals, and if he's coming again with the rod at the end of trumpets, what about the people at the beginning? They have to be connected to the rod. And the rod is connected to the new year of trees with Aaron, with the blossoming of the almond blossom, the almond bud. It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. You see, we know he's coming at the end of seals, and it's the 144,000. This is what I was saying. I would go to the end of Mark. At the end of Mark's gospel. Remember, he's upset with them, right? Because what happened? Listen to this. We know that, listen to this. So here's Jesus. This is a picture of Jesus coming in a prophetic, laced into the revelation, laced into the gospel here. In Mark 16, the end of Mark's gospel, starting in verse 12. After that, he appeared in another form unto two of them as they walked and went into the country. This is that same remnant too, that Moses and Elijah company. The priests and prophets, the priests and kings. He appears in another form unto the two of them, and they go to wake up, to let know the 144,000 is the picture. But they didn't believe on them. So Jesus, now when he shows up and comes to them, how could these two know before the 144,000? Do you not know already? Are you not aware that he's coming at the end of the 6th year of seals? Are you not aware where the 144,000 don't yet have understanding? Does it make sense that the two represented as the two companies, as high priests and kings, in the power and authority of Christ during seals, serving him for waking up his people, the church, they would come to these guys saying, this is the time, here it comes. And they're like, nah, that can't be it. And what happens? Jesus comes and he upbraids on them, right? He rails on them because they didn't believe the testimony of the two that came to tell them. And then what happens? They're to preach to every creature. They're going to help bring in the great multitude because there's so many. And then it says what they're to do. And he that believed and is baptized shall be saved, but he that believe not shall be damned. And these signs shall follow them that believe in my name. They shall cast out devils. They shall speak in new tongues. They shall take up serpents. You see, all these things weren't mentioned in Luke. Why? Because these guys are going to be going out during trumpets. Hello. They're going to be dealing with some serious stuff. But they're not kings and priests. The Lord is there with them still. Okay? And if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover. So then, after the Lord had spoken unto them, he was received up into heaven and sat on the right hand of God. Oh, wait a second. You mean in the exact same timing of context of Psalms 110, when he comes as high priest and king Melchizedek? When he's going to rule in the midst of his enemies? Because we're only at the end of seals? The Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou at my right hand. At the exact same prophetic timing, when he's going to sit at the right hand of the Lord. This is why it's only in Mark. This is what the difference is in the Gospels revealed to us. And they went forth and preached everywhere. Listen to this. The Lord working with them. Hello. They don't. Their connection doesn't have to be to a branch. It doesn't have to be to the almond branch, because the Christ is there as high priest and king with his rod. But there must be a rod, an almond rod connection to the first priestly line. And that's why, brothers and sisters, this revelation from the pre-trib to the Lord coming on the 8th day is the truth in the revelation of the timing of pre and after the wedding. Now what we hope and pray we have also understood just as clear, which I believe, not a thus saith the Lord, which I believe we have, is that this is it. I believe we are in the 70th year. It is not a thus saith the Lord. Okay? It's not dreams, it's not visions, it's not audibles. It is the revelation of Scripture, and in the understanding of the revelation of all of the 8 years that have led us to this point. This is powerful, guys. This story and this purpose, this understanding, which we're going to go further into to get you excited about it, to really help you see the importance of the timing of the rod, the almond blossom, the almond branch. It proves the revelation we've received through the leading of the Spirit in all of these years that led us to this point is exactly where it's supposed to be. Let's now have a listen to this. We've got a few points that we're going to listen to here. So let's start. I hopefully have it there. Yeah, let's start right here. Okay, so just like that, right off the bat. How do they get their authority? The bride will rule and reign with Messiah in his authority. See, therefore, the bride is the authority of Messiah in the earth. Again, don't confuse it with all the bride. That wouldn't make any sense. All right? You don't need 144 million people running around the earth as a remnant group of priests and kings. Okay? It's when you understand pre, mid, post, and there are 3 remnant worker groups from among them. Proven out, we've covered it many times throughout the scriptures. It is this remnant bride who has the authority of Christ, and it's through the rod of the Lord. That's why it's so important. That's why to see that this revelation over the years has brought us in this past year, pinpointing the time of the Lord's coming on the 8th day. Correct? But until that point, when she is ruling and reigning as priest and king, that remnant portion, ruling and reigning as priests and kings, they're going to have their first portion as remnant workers. You see, I've said it many times. It's this portion at the beginning that everybody misses. Nobody sees, but because they smash it and twist it together, they don't see that there is this remnant group who will serve the Lord from the bride during seals. You see, he understands this connection with the rod and their authority that they have. But this authority and this rod is connected to Messiah at the end. There is a rod of authority given to them at the beginning before he is with them as the rod and authority at the end. And it only happens, again, at one time of the year. What's the next one? 23. Let's go a little bit earlier. Oh, let me try that again. Right here. All right, that's what we were saying earlier. So both Moses and Aaron typify the king and high priest. Okay? Again, kings and priests, Moses and priests, right? Moses and Aaron's, John the Baptist, directly connected. Also prophets. Messiah is using the bride as the rod. You see? But Messiah is only here for 40 days. Why is he coming for 40 days? He's not only coming for 40 days to warn Jerusalem that they should be ready when they see these things happen, they better flee. He's also doing it to give his power and authority, to give the light, to give them his rod, that they are all his rod of authority during seals in his power and authority. Remember, guys, this almost sounds like too much. But we have to remember what's going to be taking place. We saw how crazy it was and all of these things in relation to Moses' day and Aaron's day. We're told in the discourses that mid-seals is going to be a time worse than since creation up to that time. Do you not think we would need this incredible power and authority of Christ to operate as a lamb and to be a stone? And to does that not mean excuse me, it doesn't mean that for the last 2,000 years people haven't been operating like that. Of course they have. But in the end, it's got to be amplified multiple times in greater power and authority with him, which is one of the reasons he's coming. The rod is coming to give the authority of the rod, to give his power to go out to the nations. But when he's here, what need is there for them to be the rods? To have a rod, right? What need at the end of trumpets is there for them to have rods? They go out in his authority as him being the rod. But during seals, no. Do you understand that's why he's coming? Do you understand that's why his timing, late January to early February, is the timing of the almond tree when Aaron's rod blossomed? Do you understand this is why the exact timing of his coming is connected to the New Year of Trees? Because it's the beginning of the priests. It is the beginning of the priestly line. And it is directly connected to the remnant of the bride. This should fire you up. This is the final piece of evidence, if you will, that what we've understood about this week and the coming of the Lord after the wedding is unequivocally connected to the New Year of Trees. Now we just pray that we've understood that this is the year, which I believe we've understood that unequivocally to the best of my understanding at this point too. This is it. This is it. This is the time of the workers. Could you imagine? Where are we? We're the 23rd, so we're just over 2 months away. Just over 2 months away from potentially everything changing. This is crazy. This is wild stuff. You understand? This confirms all of this revelation over this past almost year, whatever it's been. Over a year now, right? About a year? 2 calendars? Let it sink in. Realize the power and the authority in this rod. I didn't realize it to this extent as we did the lamb, the rock, the light. We are the rods of his authority. At the Feast of Trees, the New Year of Trees, to be observed 4 months early, when he comes at his birthday, but 4 months early, directly connected to the start of his 40 days, which just so happens to land us in Reuben, the man with the pitcher of water, which is the first connection to the first blessing that was given, which is when Christ comes, which is his 40 days connected to Reuben, the man with the pitcher of water. What is he doing at that time? Well, we know he's anointing the priests and kings, because they are priests and kings. He's going to give them the authority like Aaron with the rod of almond. His power and authority in it. Everything. This is, if it's not this year and it's 10 years from now, 20 years, 100 years from now, this is when it will all begin. Though I'm not saying I believe it's going to be 10, 100, 1,000 years from now. I believe this is the year. I believe the revelation has shown it. Don't go selling all of your goods. Don't go quitting your jobs. Right? We don't know with absolute certainty that this is the year. But I do believe in the revelation of this timing is as precisely understood as I do the revelation of the Gospels. Buckle up. It's going to get pretty wild. We can't even really comprehend what's coming, you know. All right, let's finish up with a couple more. So you see that? Again, this is what he keeps going on from about the 34 to 48 minute in that range. He keeps laying out this authority that's in the rod and how the bride will go out in the authority of the rod. But his connection is all post-trib. So as I was watching it, I was like, whoa, wait a second. That's the whole reason for the connection to Aaron and Aaron's connection to the almond rod. It's the beginning of the priestly line, and the beginning of the priestly line in the end of days are the Gentiles, the remnant of the bride, who will be those who will be resurrected in the end to rule with him in the authority of his rod, which he is there wielding in the end. But they must need, as Aaron did in the beginning. Exactly where our time is connected to. It's craziness. It's evidence, guys. It is the evidence. Let's go a little bit further. Last one. Where am I? I don't think I can get much closer. Okay. I'll start there, but we're going to wait for this next piece. Listen to this. The next one. Now listen to this. See that? So what is he saying? We will be judging the angels in the end. So how much more can you judge in the small matters now? All about the rod, brothers and sisters. All about the rod and the timing. All of it. Do you see what I'm saying? You You see what I'm saying? This has been part of the revelation now for a little bit, right? We understand the three comings of Christ: Reuben, Ephraim, Judah. He's coming as the man with the pitcher of water. He's coming as the ox of Ephraim, and then as the lion of the tribe of Judah. 40 days from the wedding, in the man with the pitcher of water, and towards the end of the 6 year seals, and towards the end of the 6th year of trumpets to start the 7th year of trumpets, judgments, the 14th year, feet down as the lion of the tribe of Judah. The first remnant group of workers, you see that? Reuben, this same time, Reuben, the man with the pitcher of water, is just so happens to be the precise timing of when he comes as the man with the pitcher of water to anoint the first priests, the ones that don't yet have the rod, but they're kings and priests. It just blows me away. It blows me away. The unequivocal 3 times of the coming of the Lord in Numbers 24. Man with the pitcher of water, coming at a time of the almond blossom to confirm, to empower, to bless, to give the light and the rod of Aaron to the next generation, to the final generation of kings and priests who will serve him and sacrifice themselves, just as he did. You see? Until what? Until Christ comes as Messiah ben Ephraim. When he comes as Messiah ben Ephraim, he's coming as high priest and king. You understand? I hope it's sinking in. I know I'm repeating a lot of these things, but I'm just really hoping it's sinking in what I'm explaining. Because it's showing us. It's explaining to us. It's directly telling us that the first remnant group of the bride must also have a connection to the almond blossom as Aaron's, which is connected, which is a direct imparting from Christ to this group with his power and authority from his rod. You see? Because they're operating as little hymns. So much so that they get to be heirs with him, that they get to be glorified with him or as he was glorified. Meaning they get to take part in the resurrection of the just. Which is why we see that only in Luke 14. After the wedding, of course, because it's the banquet on the 8th day. Which is why they're ruling with them as kings and priests for 1,000 years. This is why we've explained, excuse me, that we know there's the apostles, that there's this remnant bride group, there's the 144, and there's the 12 tribes during the millennial reign. Yet, excuse me, yet as many of you know, when you see the end of the 1,000 years, when the 1,000 years has ended, and the new heaven and new earth are coming down, you guys all remember this. We see that the apostles represent the 12 foundations. We see that the 144 represent the wall. And we see that the 12 tribes represent the gates of New Jerusalem. We know that during seals, the apostles will be building up the spiritual foundations of the church, while a physical foundation, only foundation, is being laid during seals. We know that then the 144,000 are sealed in the 7th year of seals and will work during trumpets while they're building up the spiritual wall. There's the physical wall and temple in Jerusalem being rebuilt on the earth. When the Lord returns, feet down on the Mount of Olives, and everything is settled and Satan is bound, then there's the millennial reign, where he is now here with them until the end of the world, he says at the end of Luke 28. And it's the 12 tribes who will go out during the millennial reign to teach the ways of the Lord. And that is why people will be entering in by the gates, while there's a spiritual gate. There is the physical temple and the gates through which people will enter to come and worship the Lord, as the 12 tribes go out and teach them the ways of the Lord. What else is happening during the millennial reign? Well, look at this. When New Jerusalem comes down, there's no connection to the remnant of Smyrna who were serving the Lord during seals. It was just the apostles' portion, the 144, and the 12 tribes. Where are the Smyrna group? Well, that's what we just shared, right? They're the ones who are co-heirs with him, having suffered with him, to take part in his glory, being resurrected to rule and reign with him during the millennial reign. That's their part, ruling and reigning with him as kings and priests. And when he comes at that point, he's also got a rod. So there's no need for a connection to them for a rod of their own, because he is there as the high priest and king forever. It dawned on me when I realized in the conversation he was talking about the end, and he was showing things that were end of seals and end of trumpets. And I was like, well, wait a second. That's because the Lord is coming as high priest and king with his rod of iron at the end of seals and again at the end of trumpets. So the 144,000, they don't have any need for a connection for a rod of their own, because he is out there with them. He is with them during the time of trumpets. And when he comes feet down on the Mount of Olives, and they go out during the millennial reign, and those who are resurrected to rule and reign with him are already under that authority with him, as he has come with the rod of iron. But what about those at the beginning? What about the remnant group? If they are the Aarons, the Moses, Elijah company, the John the Baptist connected to Aaron as priests and kings, which scripture tells us, then they must have a connection to that same rod of iron. And we've known, the same rod of Aaron, which we've understood. But now we can prove it out deeper. Because when he comes for his 40 days, he's not coming as high priest and king. He's not coming as high priest and king. Of course he is high priest and king, but he's not coming as high priest and king. He's coming as prophet to warn. And the authority is being given to the priests and kings. And it begins at the literal time of the almond blossom. What happens to this group at the end? You know what? Here they are. This is what is expected to come very first, right before the moment of the pre-trib, shortly before. In Revelation 3:20, the end of the Laodicean age. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. Who's waiting for a knock at the door? The remnant group. The remnant group who are being trained, who are being prepared in the understanding, who are being prepared in Revelation. I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come to him and will sup with him and he with me. Luke chapter 12, of course. And then when the Laodicean age of the end of days comes to an end, they will be resurrected. And what happens? Verse 21. To him that overcometh, I will grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcame. Christ overcame death in his what? Having been glorified. These guys, having overcome, kept with Christ, right? Were obedient through to death. And what do they get in their overcoming? They get to sit in his throne as he sits in his Father's with him. See what happens? There's them at the beginning, right before the moment of the pre-trib. Tell him to be knocked, when he knocks, to be ready when he returns. And at the end of tribulation, their reward is the same overcoming, being glorified as he was, operating in the power of his authority with his rod. Why? What makes this so darn exciting? Because this is that date, the new year of trees. Want me to tie on a nice, pretty little bow to bring it to an end? Let's go to Leviticus 19. What did Leviticus 19 tell us? Where did this whole story begin with? In counting for 70 years of Jerusalem that we've been trying to track and have been tracking for years, and now we're at the end of it. What does it say? Verse 23. And when you shall come into the land and shall have planted all manner of trees for food. See, there's a count within all the trees. There's a count that begins all of this within all the trees. But they had to come into the land, which Jerusalem they didn't get till 1950 in the spring, but then they had to plant trees, which didn't happen until the new year of trees. And then at Nisan in 1951, that was the beginning of year one. Well, what do we have before it? The new year of trees. The new year of trees. So that when you then get into year one, you've completed the first year at the new year of trees in the first year. And that was all part of the revelation with in the fourth year, in the fifth year. Well, why do I bring this up? Because when we go to Luke 21, it's the only one that says all the trees. Okay, watch this. In Luke chapter 21, in the parable of the lesson of the fig tree, Luke is different from Mark and different from Matthew, and Mark is also different from Matthew in relation to his and hers. Okay? What does Luke 21:29 say? And he spake unto them a parable, behold the fig tree and all the trees. How do we know the kingdom of nigh is at hand? The time of all the trees. When does the time of the count of all the trees begin? When they started planting them at the new year of trees. What's the count to the new year of trees? 70 years. In the 70th year, before it ends, a count begins at the new year of trees, and this new year of trees is to what? Is to the remnant workers. It's not talking about the bride. The bride is going to what? The bride in Luke 21:36 is escaping all these things. What does it say? Watch ye therefore, and pray always that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass and to stand before the Son of Man. What do you think they're also going to escape? Not just everything listed, but they're also going to escape the time of what? The new year of trees. So who's this speaking to? The same group this is speaking to when their redemption draws nigh, when they see him coming in a cloud on the 8th day when he returns from the wedding. At the time of all the trees when they were planted. Luke 21:30. When they now shoot forth, you see and know for your own selves that summer is now nigh at hand. So likewise, when you see these things come to pass, know ye that the kingdom of God is nigh at hand. Brothers and sisters, it's a powerful revelation. Take the time, soak it up. I believe, I repeated some of these points so much. I believe you've gotten it. You've understood it if you've been following here for a little while. It is the revelation of why the New Year of Trees is the connection to his return on the 8th day and the remnant bride prepared, who will be dressed in white, who will be his light, you see, and will be his rods throughout the earth. It's exciting, guys. I pray this blesses you. I pray this strengthens you. Continue to pray and watch over each other. Continue to lift each other up. If you're able to support and help us make a push now more than ever, please do. Thank you very much. And we'll talk to you very soon. God bless you. God bless your families. Bye for now.